Welcome back to Holistic Healing Association. I am Erin Darcy. I'm certified in embodied processing and clinical hypnosis. Today, I have with me Joanna, and she's all the way from Poland. This channel has not had someone from Poland, and I'm going to really enjoy hearing you today and your incredible journey. Um, Recently, I've heard survivor is a new term I prefer is overcomer. Because when you're going through things in life, you're surviving. But Joanna, she's overcome a great deal in her life. And it is an honor to have her on my channel. Thank you for joining us. And if you'd like to tell us more about yourself.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure. Thank you, Erin, for the invitation and sweet welcome. Um, yes, so I grew up in Poland. Spent first 25-ish years there. Then I lived 12 years in Tokyo, Japan, and now Costa Rica is my home. I feel that my life has been immensely great and whole and wide spectrum of what a human experience can be, full of beauty and love and inspiration, adventure, but also lots of suffering and pain and shame, devastation, addiction, all of it. And what I feel really, really grateful is that after all the difficulties and challenges in life, I can still appreciate and sense and feel love and beauty and joy and fulfillment and just, depth and breadth of magic of life. So I feel in a way that first part of my life really was defined by trauma, and the second part really extraordinary and magical and miraculous healing and journey to where I am right now. And I love nature, I love music, I love dancing, deep conversations. Today I am deeply devoted to being of service, and there are two ways in which I do that. One is through my coaching practice, where I help my clients identify and transform subconscious beliefs, emotional patterns, survival adaptations, which I had so many myself as well. And I also co-facilitate in plant medicine work, supporting, again, people on their journeys, also recovering from addiction, from trauma, and other really bigger and smaller, but always significant life changes. So,
Okay. Well, thank you. And can you tell us what your perspective of trauma is and what embodiment truly means?
yes. So trauma, right, to get to like the very base of things, right, is the response of the body, of the system, and I believe on all the levels of being, spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical, to some kind of an overwhelming event, right? Can be a single event, can be a series of events. In the other words, it's a series of adaptations that we develop in order, right, to manage what I often relate to, really, to manage the unmanageable. And so embodiment, again, to me, is a conscious connection with all aspects of what makes a human being. So again, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. In the other words, we can say it's inhabiting a full spectrum of a life experience, right? Which then the greater depth of that is available to us, the greater capacity that we have to inhabit all these aspects of being, right? The ever deepening and the greater experience of life. And so it can be kind of tempting how I see a lot of, like content on social and elsewhere around embodiment to drop into thinking that it's a series of practices. It's something that we do. It's a toolkit. And practices certainly are useful, and they, again, I believe they help us, right, develop or deepen, right, into that connectedness with ourselves and with our body, our sensations, intuition, right? But embodiment itself is a relationship. It's not a practice, it's a relationship. And it's also not a destination. Like, oh, I'm embodied, I arrived.
No, I know it's a journey, and it's a relationship with self.
Exactly. And it's an ongoing one.
It's
Right? Not
ongoing.
like, yes, not
And
mhm.
no one's perfectly 100% embodied. That's why it's a journey.
Yes, yes, exactly. Right. So not even to see us as, permanently broken or there's always something to be fixed, not from that, right,
No.
stance, but, right, a really ongoing relationship, because there is always something deeper that I can discover about myself, how I relate to myself, and a life that it constantly provides with all kinds of experiences that are impossible, right, to predict or plan out. So it's just this constant dance and curiosity and deepening in the connection with self and with life, and allowing all of that to move through with conscious connection to the best of ability, or right, to the level that is available to me right now. And who knows how that's going to look like for me in 2 years or in 10 years, right? Yeah.
All right. And today we're going to start off with a simple body scan. And Joanna, would you prefer to start off with your head or your feet?
Let's start with the head.
With the head? Okay. So everyone at home, I invite you to join us. Just find a very quiet place, room, that there's no distractions, no noises. Get comfortable, have a seat. If you're comfortable, keep your eyes closed. And I would just invite everyone to take a breath and just let a sigh out. And Joanna, I'm just going to invite you to start to notice what's happening in your forehead. And as you feel sensations or emotions come up, if you're comfortable, you can share
Mm.
as we move through the body.
Yeah, I'm sensing a degree of nervousness that is always present when speaking like this. There's some excitement, gratitude, anticipation present.
Okay, and noticing at the scalp of your head, if there's any sensations present. And I invite you to even put up your hands on your face and gently start to massage your forehead.
Mm.
Now let out another sigh, moving down cheekbones and your jaw, and just noticing if you're feeling any sensations in your cheeks or your jaw.
Mm. I don't know if I was actually doing it, but there was like a degree of tension on my forehead. Mm.
I often feel sensations in my forehead. It's a common
Mm.
spot, I believe. Noticing what you taste, what you smell. And when moving down your neck, you rub your neck a little if you like. Moving down your shoulders, you can wriggle your shoulders. And everything is welcome. All emotions are welcome, everyone. All sensations are welcome. Even an itch is a sensation, joint pain. And as we're moving, you can notice if you're feeling any heat, any cold in your body, and just moving down your arms. And you can rub your arms if you'd like. How are you doing? How are you doing?
Great.
Good.
This is awesome. This is the best podcast opening ever.
And moving to your hands and just rubbing your hands and noticing if you're feeling sensations. And moving back up your arms. Letting out another sigh. And starting to slowly go down your chest. And I find this is very common, one of the most common places people will notice sensations and emotions is held in the chest near the heart. And I invite everyone, you can even put your hand on your heart and just really notice what's happening. And just give yourself a little bit of support. And your stomach. And this is another common area people feel emotions, sensations. How are you doing, Joanna?
Yeah, really grounding. My belly feels very settled, quiet, pleasant.
And let's just move back up your back. And we're just going to slowly start to work down your back, down your spine. But just notice, just take time to notice what's happening in your back. If there's any stiffness, any tightness, whatever is happening. Hold our emotions in our body, and our bodies speak to us. And starting to move down the spine to the lower back. To the hips. joint, the hips, the glutes. Thighs. And just letting out another sigh. And your calves. You can even rub your legs at home, everyone. Give yourself some self-care, some self-love and support. And moving down to your ankles. Your feet. And I invite you to ground your feet into the ground. Just put a little bit of pressure on and just notice what's happening. And ground your back against the chair if you're sitting down. And I invite you to do a full body scan for this moment and just notice if you're feeling any sensations and any emotions. And if you are feeling a sense of safety or peace or even neutral, somewhere in your body, I invite you to anchor that into your body. And different positions you can anchor into your body. This is by putting your hand on your heart or on your wrists and holding your wrists. And this is just anchoring a sense of safety or peace into your body. And I invite everyone to do this every day at home, even for a few moments. And then when we do start to feel stress, we can start to naturally, organically, or just start to be able to bring it into our body and start to resource and finding that anchor of safety. Giving yourself a hug can be an anchor. Just letting out another sigh and just noticing what suits you, what's best for you. Put your hand on your leg, whatever is right for you. Everyone's different. Everyone has their different approach. But anchor into your body where you feel the most comfortable. And if you'd like to slowly open your eyes, and how are you feeling?
Way more grounded than when we began. Yeah, beautiful.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, more spacious in my body as well. That nervousness that I mentioned earlier also way flew out.
Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. And would you like to tell us about your story?
Yes.
Story.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that first half of my life was really, probably wouldn't be an overstatement to say, defined by trauma and abuse. So what I experienced was a severe developmental trauma throughout my childhood. So first 20 years of my life, I was pretty much steeped in prolonged abuse and violence. And so the violence in my home, because not all of it, but most of it was instigated and practiced by my primary caregivers. So, sometimes I say it's almost easier to point out the types that I did not experience, much shorter list. So without going into like super great details, right? We're talking about physical, psychological, emotional abuse, torture, incest, and sex trafficking. So that's first 20 years of my life.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. It's, yeah, really horrendous, right? If you imagine the worst horror movie, that's really what was my day to day. So alongside, right, those big categories, we're also talking about daily exposure in terms of how relations are built, how people, right, within the family unit, which was my parents, 2 years younger brother, and myself as the closest, right? And then there is also grandparents, manipulation, coercive control, profound enmeshment, chronic fear, just the depth of codependent type of relational dynamics, right, that were presented to me as just, this is what normal family life is, right? This is what relating with another or with self looks like. So developmental trauma, right? What its characteristics is that it becomes the foundation of who we become. It's the most basic programming. So it's really influenced how one feels safe, because we create illusions of that in order to survive, right? The unsurvivable, really. How we see ourselves, how we relate to ourselves, to life, to others, to opportunities, to the divine. So again, all of that really informed and created, right, the earliest programming and the lens through which I was seeing myself and I was interpreting reality. So then you can imagine, right, how that impacts, and we can pull on like so many different strings here, right? The self-esteem, the relationships, right? How I perceive myself and life and what's possible for me. Yeah, it's really environments like that really warps a lot of that perception into absolutely dysfunctional. Yeah.
What was an average day for you growing up? And can you tell us about some of the abuse that you experienced?
Yeah. So one I think important point to make is that I'm still untangling, in the process of untangling that. Because when so much is happening that is ultimately just so deeply confusing, right, to what natural, healthy, right, relationality should look like. Meaning I live with people who are tasked, right, in terms of how we're built as relational beings. The people who are around me, my parents, are the ones who are meant to protect me, right, and teach me things and create space for me to explore and learn about myself. And instead of that, they are the source of violence, right, and danger. So the daily flavor, really, there's a lot of unpredictability. One thing that is predictable is unpredictability. And there is a constant fear that I live in. Terror sometimes, right? So, and in my case, because of the nature of how the trafficking was organized, there was also an ongoing awareness of threat of death. I lived with an understanding that if I don't comply and I don't do what I'm told, then I'll be gotten rid of, to be like really blunt.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah. Right. So there is a great degree of fragmentation that happens in my brain, in my psyche, right, in my being. So on the surface, if you were to look what's presented outwardly, I was very put together, highly functional. So, like an average day, I get up in the morning, mom makes breakfast, I go to school, right, when I'm still at school age, right? I am straight A student, I'm social, I have friends, right? There is nothing visible, like, no like black eye or anything like that, even though there is physical violence at home. Highly functional. After school, I go back home, I do my homework, right? On the surface, just like a regular child, right? But then the unpredictable part of it is that I never knew really when a client was, right, invited or scheduled, however they organized that. So there was this big piece, I live as a commodity in a business endeavor. So while part of my life is a regular small girl, right, who goes to school, who has friends, there is also that other part from which I largely dissociated, that I have no conscious connection with, where I'm taking into the basement and people do with me whatever they want, or I'm taken places, right, to be of service. And my parents, right, take money for that, which I also witnessed, right? Money is being exchanged in exchange for my body. So that's yet another level, right, of then how that impacts how I see myself and resources and my values. So, yeah, there's really so much more I could speak into this, but I think that give you like a at least based, right, understanding like day to day. And there are also, things like summer vacations, so we go on road trips and so on. So it's just this simultaneously, there are two things happening. Some that one would consider as absolutely normal and healthy, right, as you would witness in any family. And there is this other world, right, and they are just deeply intertwined together. But also in my mind, they compartmentalized to be able, right, to live with that. So then there is that dark side of abuse and violence, right, and dysfunction.
And when did you start to realize this was not normal?
I know that on some level, even though I didn't have the capacity to actually recognize it and identify it and word it that way, on some level, if we look at the greatest depth of my being, I knew that there's something inherently wrong with all of this. If we speak of, some people may call it soul, my essence, right? Because I have recollections of things I'm just so confused, right? That's one sign. Something's really off here. Or feeling just such immense disgust hearing, how the mom figure would, like criticize and gossip and just express so much like hatred about other people. So signals like that, but again, I'm not consciously connected to any of that. So again, normal, right, is really what we are mostly exposed to. So that's my normal.
Right.
And then also the environment in which I live in is also very much, there are many aspects, that are dysfunctional in the culture, in people around me. So I know, some families of some of my friends were also different degrees of abusive, right, interactions and experiences. So again, it's most of what I'm exposed to and what I interact with is various degrees of dysfunction. So that becomes the normal. So while I'm in that space, I really don't know that. So only years later, fast forward to when I'm in my 30s, I just start getting signals only by contrast. I meet somebody who lived through extreme violence and abuse, and hearing him share his story, I start recognizing some elements, some little threads. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, this thing sounds like my mom. Contrast, right? Someone reflects to me, right? So these were like the first like signposts. And then I just had one, bigger experience where the doors of my memory, like my dissociation, just opened the door to that. So that's where the greater understanding of what really happened to me, because most of my life I lived having no memory of anything that I'm sharing with you right now. Right.
And how did realizing it impact you?
Oh my goodness. Simultaneously, two things. One, it was so immensely disorienting and crashing and devastating. If I were to put it in a sentence, it would be, oh my God, everything that I thought of my life was an absolute illusion, including, beyond the first 20 years when I'm, in my early 20s, I leave the country, I go, adult life. So to the point of understanding why I made certain decisions, why I went to this country and not the other, because everything was informed, but the formative first 20 years, because that was my base programming, right? So in some ways I'm recreating, in some ways I'm running away, in some ways, right, I'm perpetuating what I learned at home. So when, these memory gates open, again, disorienting and devastating, because just it almost felt, that it began a journey of living all of that again, but now in conscious connection. So here comes processing of all the unresolved emotions and so on and so forth, and identifying really what I experience. And that's, I find, also very important process of healing. And simultaneously, on the other side, it was so profoundly, really enlightening, because at the same time, the experience was, my life makes sense right now, right? And the power of having really an opportunity to reclaim my history and truly embody, right, and consciously connect with myself, which includes the self that developed as a result of all the violence that I grew up with, right, and integrating that. And then from there, I have a space really to learn how to truly live and experience and love and receive. Because other than that, and often I'm asked actually, would you want to revert back? If you had a choice, would you like to go back and choose not to remember? And I say, absolutely not. Right? It's a horror movie. But now, again, I have an opportunity to actually make it my own. I'm not at the mercy of those people anymore, and I'm not at the mercy of the suffering and pain that I experienced. Right? So here comes the great, in other words, we can say alchemy, right? How can I reclaim that, make that my own, learn from it, integrate it, and thus a greater depth of life is available to me.
And that is what I called an empowered woman.
Yes.
And when did you realize this was not your biological family?
So yes, I grew up. That's also just a couple of years ago. I grew up thinking they are my parents, they are my family. So with this whole, right, dissociation, letting go, and it's still an ongoing process. There are still plenty of spaces that I don't, I wouldn't even say I don't remember. I don't have a conscious connection with. I don't have data, right? So in a series of waves of memories, right, and data coming in, that was part of it. That I was purchased as an infant, right, for the purposes of that business endeavor, right? So that's why also even greater, trauma of all of that, because I lived with those people, thinking of them as my mom and my dad and my grandparents, right? I didn't know of any of that, so just complicates, right?
Just adds
things.
layers.
Yeah, and not to say, it would be as devastating and painful, right, to experience that, but again, just adds another layer of really a degree of the experience of betrayal, right? That they are pretending to be somebody else, right, than who they actually were. Yeah.
That's deep.
Yeah.
And is there ever a time when you were growing up that someone noticed something, someone said it was talked about at school, a friend, a parent's friend, anyone?
Not that I recall. No one approached me with any sort of like concern or asked questions. And I think, in a way, it really confirms the really like devastating and heartbreaking nature of the reality of developmental trauma, is that, families often create these unspoken almost agreements. In a recovery world, we call them don't talk, don't trust, don't feel. So the denial within the system, right, is absolutely necessary for the system to continue, which includes, right, not only the people who are those who instigate, right, violence or abuse, but also the receiver of it. So it's not like, I'm a child and I consciously decide to hide, right, what I'm living through, to hide the reality of what's going on at home. But it's just part of the adaptation, right? It just automatically happens on my behalf. So survival really, reorganizes what we can identify as good or bad, as healthy or unhealthy, normal or abnormal, right? Like I said earlier, it's absolutely warped. So, and again, there's another side of it, that I was very highly functional in many ways. So I don't present as a deeply abused child to people who are also, have their own issues. Who knows, if I was exposed to someone who was actually healthy, maybe they would notice some patterning, right, of some kind of behaviors that I present. But again, at home and outside, two completely different worlds. So, right, so what's presented is just this typical family and, like little troubles, younger brother, but this is how boys are. And there's the older, right, daughter and sister who's like, so well put together and such a great student, and and she's such an easy child, and everyone is sociable, and mom is involved in school, not even like excessively as it seems, and supportive, and so all of that creates the environment when it's very easy for those things to stay hidden. Yeah.
And what's happening in your body as you're telling us this?
Mm. Um, so yeah, the nervousness is back. And I also have a little support for that.
Oh, that's good.
Um, so, like on some level, it is uncomfortable because if I were, um, this is support for my little girl,
Hmm.
right? Not for the adult Joanna who's speaking to you, but there is a sense of um, hesitation and maybe even, like wondering, like, is it actually safe for us to speak about those things in such an open manner and in such a depth, right? That is outside of relationships that I have. So I have spoken about it with my partner. I have spoken about it in some one-on-one conversations with people that there is, intimacy, there is trust. So there is, it feels safer in a way. So now
Hmm.
coming onto, what we could call a public platform,
Hmm.
right? And speaking to you with also understanding that way more people will be exposed, right, to
Right.
everything that I'm sharing right now. Yeah, it is uncomfortable. It's very intimate. And at the same time, it feels empowering and beautiful and also like supportive to me in a sense that I do not have to hide this because none of this actually defines who I am. It used to, where I was absolutely oblivious to any of it, right? So I'm just living the reverberation of the coping mechanisms and the adaptations without even knowing, right? So I'm pretty much living somebody else's life. So now, having done all the work that I've done, and again, it's not like I arrived and I'm all healed and so on. It's all a process. And I don't know if I'll ever, fully integrate that in this lifetime. If I'll ever finish grieving and so on and so forth. But really learning to accept that and meet that as those things come. And also I've been really in, like a prayer recently. Okay, I know that there is value in my history and then what I get to experience on the other side of it. So it's beautiful to be able to be in the depth of relationship that I am with myself, first and foremost, to be able to come, right, and join you in a space like this and speak about it. Not as, oh, poor me, look how fucked up my life was, but rather, yes, all of that happened. Yes, it has to be acknowledged. Yes, it was horrific. And there is life that's possible on the other side of it. And also, in some ways, what a beautiful gift to my little girl who gets to see that, and that it doesn't have to be something, again, to be ashamed of, to be afraid of. Um, and that we don't have to continue replaying the rules of keeping it a secret, right? But
Because
having the freedom, yeah, to choose
think
and share if I really feel that it's of value for me and for others who get to hear this.
exactly that's what I was just going to say, because it's so important that is if we keep everything a secret,
Mm-hmm.
human trafficking is already growing. It's growing faster than gun trafficking and drug trafficking because people can be used repeatedly, as disturbing as it is. And if we don't speak about it, if we don't make a stand, a public stand, and speak up against it, it will continue. But if there's going to be people like you that have the courage and the inner strength to stand up against it and speak out and people can hear your story and learn and grow and realize it can be happening in our communities. I know it's happening in my hometown.
Mm,
Currently, for soccer, the World Cup is on. It's an hour away from me in Toronto. Human trafficking has escalated a ton because there's so many more people. There's 50 million people in the world today that are slaves to human trafficking. That's more than the history of time. There's more people in the world, but percentage for amount of people, it's the highest it's ever been. And it's 2026.
mm,
How is that possible?
mm,
How is that possible? How is that possible that there's children growing up in homes that people are not noticing? And it's happening every day. It's happening to children every single day that they're growing up in homes that are abusive, that they're being trafficked, and no one's saying a word. We need to notice, we need to be aware, we need to speak out. If you start to notice something at home, if you start to notice something's going on with your neighbor, a child at your children's school, speak out because you could be helping a child. You could be saving a child. Joanna, how did you escape from this life?
mm. There are so many layers to this question. Um, One, the most surface layer is the system within I grew up. I think just with that started eroding. I grew up. I'm now in my late teens, about to graduate high school. Um, Things even in units like that change with time and with age. My abusers age, right? In Poland, we come of age at 18, so that also changes a lot, right? So, in some way, the business like slowed down towards that time. There wasn't really much of, as far as I remember, like outward physical abuse anymore, even though the emotional manipulation and all that within that sphere like still continued. So I think that allowed me on some levels just make more independent decisions. So I graduate high school and then I have this dream of going to Japan, and within a couple of years of working hard, I actually make it happen. And even though the parents, try to somehow like impact my decision and try to convince me not to do it using different manipulative sort of ways, I still do it. And so a lot of also at that age, maybe not a lot, but some of the illusions, some of the dissociation for how we are relating start falling away. And I noticed, like, this is so like unpleasant. Like, why every time, my mom, the mom figure, she speaks to me, she makes everything about herself. She is a victim. It's like every decision that I make, just to give you an example, let's say, I don't know, it's something as simple as me choosing to listen to heavy rock music somehow makes it about her, that I'm trying to hurt her because she doesn't appreciate the music, right? Like a healthy person is like, it doesn't even compute. It's ridiculous, right? But this is how we're relating, right? So she's so self-centered that everything, I am an extension of her, right? So, things like that continue, and I just start growing more and more aware of that. So again, just gives me more, I guess, also agency to say no. So there wasn't, like big escape sort of thing. just multiple threads of things just coming together around that time. And eventually I leave the country, even though I'm still very much connected to both parents, and I'm still subject to their control, but mostly emotional. But again, the distance also made it easier for me to start setting boundaries, say no to things. I don't want to engage with you like this. Or if we continue having this conversation like that, I'm just going to disconnect the call, right? So that helped me also start asserting myself and saying no to things that I just felt as I just don't want to be part of that.
And how does no, when you say no, how does that feel?
It felt in some way very uncomfortable. Like the first few times, it's almost like feeling guilty, for standing up for myself. And then I don't think I was also back then connecting to the anger that I was feeling. Now I can identify it in hindsight, but back then, because I was just so deeply dissociated from anger, generally from my emotional body, but anger was one of the main ones. So there was a lot of stirring in my body, but I didn't know what that was. So I had very visceral responses, but again, the distance, because I'm on the other side of the world, and so also logically I know there's nothing they can do to me right now in this arrangement. So it was very empowering, very. That was really the first time when I started saying no on so many different levels.
And setting boundaries.
Yeah. Even though I didn't know that was that, right? I wouldn't be able to tell you back then, oh, I just set a boundary with my mom.
No, me either. No, like I have set boundaries, but like before I enter the embodied processing program, I can't say, I would say that's a boundary. Just more
Mm-hmm.
recently with my daughter, I'm starting to use that word to teach her. But I would just set them. I may not even be realizing I'm setting a boundary. It's just kind of happening.
Yeah.
And how did growing up in that home environment shape your self perception?
Mm. It, yeah, it shaped everything, really. Almost everything, let's say. Um, so as children, we naturally experience ourselves and we are geared, right, towards experiencing ourselves growing up through the eyes, right, through the people who are raising us. So if I'm constantly exposed to neglect, abuse, manipulation, violation, right, I will draw very specific kind of conclusions about myself based on that, right? So some of the conclusions were, for example, being responsible for that family unit's finances. And this also I can actually verbalize just past 2 years. I wasn't able to connect with that, right, to such a degree. But it's happening, right? I am responsible for other people's emotions and needs. My value comes from productivity, self-abandonment, perfection, doing what I'm told. Love is something that has to be earned. And of course, if we look, deep enough, that's not even love, right? But it's just the illusion of it, right? Where the sense making, right? A child, right, like me, would try to make out of the situation they are in. Also, my needs don't matter, actually, to the point that I don't have needs. Like to give you like a, example of this, the most striking thing was when maybe 4 or 5-ish years ago, for the first time in my life, a friend, someone, asks me, Joanna, what do you need? And in that moment, my brain just it was just error, I'm not computing. What do you mean? What do you need?
What do you mean? What do I need?
Yeah, yeah.
No one's ever asked me this before.
No, right? And it's not even like, oh, can I express that, or can I identify? Like this space doesn't even exist for me, right? So my brain just gets scrambled, and I'm like, that's it. We need to reboot because where I'm not computing, right? So, and ultimately, all of that teaches me that I don't matter. But the only thing that matters is what I can do for others. And again, as long as that's aligned with what they want from me, right? So I grow up absolutely externally focused, which then again, right, what does translate into is just ever deepening disconnection from myself, profound dissociation, compartmentalizing different aspects, right, of my being. Because again, it's like way beyond the capacity of my nervous system and my psyche to actually stay connected to all of that and make any sense of it. So then most of my life, I don't have conscious access to, again, what I'm sharing with you, to my actual lived experience, to my physical body, to my emotions. And I live in the mind. I intellectualize everything. Yeah. And even though if we had, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, if we had a conversation about self-esteem, I would genuinely tell you I don't have issues with self-esteem, because also I was mistaking it for confidence, for being outgoing, for being go-getter. I do go out there and make things happen. I did make a lot of my life happen. So also, right, on the surface, I'm presenting as very well put together, highly functional individual, but I'm anxious, I'm depressed, and I have this whole set of, right, coping mechanisms that I'm not even aware of. Right?
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah. That's also good to know, because I thought I was, and the entire world is against me, but everybody somehow had life figured out. That was another reality that I lived. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, I could be the loudest person at a party. I'm the person at certain parties. If someone's in a corner and no one's talking to them and they're shy, I'm the person who will go bring them into the party, into the group,
Mm-hmm.
right? Played a lot of sports. I didn't realize until I started somatic processing and did many, many sessions that some of my activities, it wasn't a full reason, but for low self-esteem. I was doing it because I also like to compete against my body, but
Yeah.
I was also doing it to prove my self-worth. That's coming from a place of low self-esteem, but I didn't realize it. Like for one, if you're doing a behavior, it can come from multiple sources, multiple reasons. But one reason is I like to compete against my own body, and the other one, I was trying to prove my self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
How did embodied processing help you?
It brought me into, for one, realizing that there is such a thing as conscious connection or conscious relationship with the body. And then also, like I said earlier, with contrast. Oh, I'm actually not connected to my body, even though I wasn't, like absolutely with no touch to any emotional states. With some I was. Right. So again, it's not like black and white. You are either connected or you're disconnected, right? But it's all just so messy and mixed up. So For one, like I said earlier, I lived most of my life in my head, intellectualizing everything. And in relation to the physical parts, right, of the human experience, I would say that we simply just coexisted. How the best way probably to describe it is like, I do my thing, my body does its thing, and somehow we just do it. And how I treat. So the relationship that I actually had with my body, to push it harder, work harder, produce more, do more. So looking back, actually, it's really striking to see how closely that mirrored the way that I was treated growing up. Absolute recreation. Right? I left the home and left the people, but I continued treating myself and my body in the same way as those people. So through all kinds of right somatic work, I start learning, the distinction between thinking things and actually feeling things. Again, the conscious connection, first with the physicality, and then also learning to listen and engage with the signaling from my body and what my body is experiencing or sometimes trying to communicate, rather than trying to fix it, escape it, suppress it, right? Override it, distract. I learned to be a human doing, right?
Exactly.
So that would be my go-to, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again,
I
the
get it.
very base, yeah, of somatic, of embodiment and that sort of, like processing and somatics was slow down.
Mm-hmm.
If we strip it to like the very basics, that was the first step for me. Slow down. And then get curious and just notice, right? I wouldn't be able to do anything else, like at the very beginning. Yeah. Because just so fixated on doing. So again, that space was the very, very first contact of even realizing that the body is something to have a relationship with rather than to push it around and, exert whatever force onto it so that it does whatever I want it to do with absolute disrespect of its needs, of, capacities. Just push, 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 go, 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 go.
Exactly. I'm the same way. Like like it took me to hit pretty much rock bottom
Mm-hmm.
to slow down because it's so hard to stop and just slow down. And you can have people telling you, but it's so hard. But you get to a point and you have to, right? And then that's when your healing can really start. You can
Yeah.
start become more embodied and mhm, mhm. So if a woman is watching this right now and feels completely broken and far away from loving herself, what is one gentle truth you want her to hear?
Hmm. First and foremost, I would say that the way you might be feeling about yourself today or right now is not necessarily the truth of who you are. And that a lot of those things may be a result of what you lived through. And that there is profound difference in recognizing that and what is my true essence. And that what is inherently within us, I believe, is nothing that can actually be taken away or actually truly damaged. So, yes, right, we may have learned or the system, the mind, the nervous system may have learned fear, may have learned or integrated shame as a sense of self. Body may have learned to brace or to disconnect. But then while those things are true and those parts of us need so much compassion and so much presence and patience and loving, these are also not the things that make us who we truly are.
And
So
what are some of your inner strengths, and how do you embody them?
One that comes to mind first for me is curiosity. And it's one of the things that I really love and appreciate myself. Getting curious about who I am truly, right? And then also getting curious about, okay, what is actually going on within me? What's underneath that? What, how can I get to know myself, that dysfunctional self, right? What is all these sensations in my body? Is this fear? Is this shame? Is this anger? Okay, curiosity. Which again, for me, I also had to learn how to uncouple that from fixing, because there's something wrong with me, right? But if I look at the full essence, it's really, really beautiful, and also such a helpful thing on healing journey to get curious about what is happening to me. And then with that comes also willingness to get uncomfortable. Right? So again, any of those things exist in isolation, right? But again, developing a relationship with those things, and that's how I embody them. They are not just the things, the concepts, right, that I think, but I apply, I feel, right? I engage with them, which then again brings greater possibility for embodiment, for connection, right?
Exactly. And then when we have connection with ourselves, and we have relationship with ourselves, and we can love ourselves, it's easier to love others. And how does unconditional, radical self-acceptance actually help regulate our nervous system and help us heal?
I find that acceptance in itself, if we can even, it's a practice first and foremost. I couldn't do acceptance when I, started this quote unquote work. But it's such a key because it allows space for my nervous system to actually just be. Right? So when I'm not constantly criticizing it or my body or my feeling space or the sensations, right? The physicality, or I'm not rejecting my experience. Where all I'm communicating is really what I grew up with. Anything but this. So I cannot just be, right? So that's the opposite. So if I can bring at the very base level just recognition, even if I don't have names for the feelings, for the emotions, even at that space, and I used to be in that space, I couldn't recognize, I couldn't put words to what I'm noticing in my body. But if I can just sit and really tap into the space, it's okay. And at the beginning, that's all I could do. I wasn't even feeling. I was just accessing that through my head, just telling myself it's okay to feel this way. And I don't have to do anything, because that's my urge again, to do right? Human doing.
I understand.
Do something about it. Alarm. Change the situation, right? Fix it. So that's really, like the beginning. And again, it's a spectrum, it's a process, it's a relationship, and it's ever deepening. So I wouldn't say that I'm in a space of you said radical, I think, self or unconditional, right? Self-acceptance. Um, but practicing it little by little
Practicing.
before,
Same here.
yeah,
It's practicing.
before
It's a
any
journey.
exactly before any other tools and and changing and learning and inquiring. Okay, can I just accept that I have this experience?
And not have
That,
to go do this because I'm feeling pain and I want to push it down. Because in reality, that's why we're doing it. And my last question, do you have time for one last question?
yeah, sure.
How can people watching today become more embodied? And what is one practice everyone can do at home to become more embodied?
Hmm. I would say that resist the idea that it's something big and that is plenty of things to learn and practice and study. That it actually can be much simpler than we often imagine. And it can start with that acceptance that we spoke about. And so again, if we
Self-acceptance.
yeah, right, if we consider embodiment as an ongoing and deepening of a relationship with myself, which includes the mind is
And the
part of the
soul.
and the soul, the spiritual, right? But it's about, if there was a goal, I would say that there is one of creating coherence within all those aspects, right? Mine is not evil, it's not bad, it's
No.
brilliant, right? But we need to be balanced, right? In a way, that's why we have body, that's why we have senses, that's why we have emotions, that's why we have nervous system, that's why we have mind, that's why we have the divine spiritual aspects of us, because all of it is of value. But when we over index of one of them, then right, everything gets scrambled.
Everything
So
needs to be balanced.
yeah, right? So acceptance, could be that, or even, like before that, just noticing and allowing ourselves to just recognize this is my experience before we go into anything, right? So just like you asked me at the beginning, okay, I noticed that I feel a little bit nervous right now. When we're doing the body scan, I noticed that my shoulders mildly, but they were a little bit like risen and a little bit tensed up. Okay, so can I notice and then be okay with it? And that then also brings a degree of safety to the nervous system, because I don't try to whip it into whatever, image of what it should be. I'm thinking, right? There's nothing as should, is. So can I let myself meet that? And this is how we start deepening into actually a conscious connection with our body. And that's how we also start growing in safety with ourselves. So it can be just that simple, heart, hand on heart, close the eyes, and okay, can I just recognize what I'm experiencing right now? And just breathe and just be with that. Even if what's available is 3 seconds. But that's how we start.
And starting to feel safe in our bodies. And when we
Yeah.
can start to accept our body and accept ourselves,
Yeah.
it helps us become more safe. And feeling safe is the first step to healing. Well, thank you so much. It was an honor to have you. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will be both leaving our information below. Feel free to reach out for any questions, or if you'd like to book a session, we're happy to help you. If you are experiencing human trafficking yourself, I will be leaving a number emergency number you can call. Please, everyone, be more aware, become more aware of what's happening in our surroundings for our own sake, but for our community, our neighbors, our schools. It's happening everywhere. And it's just growing. And so we all need to put our foot down and say, no, this is not happening. And we are taking a stand. We are taking a public stand. And we are going to be watching out for our children, our neighbors, our friends, our family. And if we start to notice something, say something. Speak out. Thank you so much.